What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. This is Mr. Ride 0844. If you're new here, this is actually one of my very first videos, so if you enjoy the content, definitely hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps me get this channel going. Alright, so let's jump right into the Battlefield 6 open beta. I've been grinding it for a few hours already, and damn, I got a lot to say. There's some things I absolutely love, some things I feel different compared to the old Battlefields, and there's a few things that honestly just have me scratching my head, not knowing what's going on. So stick around because I'm breaking it all down from the new class and weapon system to the maps, vehicles, destruction, and even some of the weird bugs I've run into. So let's get right into it. One of the first big changes you'll notice is the way the weapon classes work. Instead of being locked into a specific weapon type per class like we used to have, and now you can technically run any weapon in any class if you're playing in the open class modes. They do have a closed mode type, which I mean that's cool and all, but I feel like that's how Battlefield should be. And at first, that kind of sounds cool, right? You got more freedom, more customization, but here's the kicker. Each class still gets a buff when they use their intended weapon. So like assault gets perks with assault rifles, recon with snipers, support with LMGs, and so on. And honestly, I'm torn on the system because on one hand, I didn't really have an issue running whatever weapon I wanted. It's kind of freeing because I'll be running like recon, so I can have the respawn beacon, but also be using an LMG. And if I'm paired up with one of my buddies, he's got the ammo and everything like that. So it kind of makes it like work in a way, but it also makes it feel a little bit more Call of Duty-ish instead of feeling like I'm playing a traditional Battlefield squad where everyone has a role. It kind of like still blurs the lines into like what's leaning over into a Call of Duty style of gameplay versus like a Battlefield style of gameplay. Where in Call of Duty, you pick your perks per class and stack them to fit your play style. Instead, here it's basically like the perks are tied to the classes, but you get to just change out your weapons instead of just changing out your perks and stuff like that. I mean, it's still the beta and everything, but it looks like there's going to be more perks coming into the future for the individual classes themselves. So is this a bad thing? Not necessarily, but it does take away a bit from the identity that Battlefield always had in the strict class roles. And I think in the long term that it's going to be a love it or hate it feature. One of the things that they definitely got right is having voice chat in the game. Thank God, because Battlefield 2042, right on launch, didn't have voice chat in the game. So that made zero sense. How are you communicating? Yeah, you can't really have a game built on teamwork and large-scale battles and then remove voice communication. It just basically kills the vibe. Like, literally, if you're not playing with somebody from a party with you, and you're in like Discord or like a party chat or something like that, like you have no communication with them. I've already also spent more hours in the Battlefield 6 open beta than I did all of Battlefield 2042 combined. And honestly, it's just because Battlefield 6 just feels more grounded. Battlefield 2042, they went down the same road Call of Duty did with all these futuristic gadgets and tech toys that just didn't belong in the games. Battlefield was always about all-out warfare, chaos mixed with tactical gameplay, and just Battlefield 2042 drowned it with gimmicks. Battlefield 6 feels like they're trying to reel it back in with their grounded, more militaristic ground force combat playstyle. And now game-wise, it almost feels like it's a mashup of Battlefield 4 crossing over into the lines with Battlefield 2042. You just got smaller map modes that really just remind me of the Battlefield 4 days tight action-packed non-stop shooting, but at the same time some of the mechanics and design carried over from 2042. Like, it's not necessarily bad, but it's definitely different. It feels like the game itself has its own identity, but it's fun and I'm having a blast. But honestly, it just doesn't feel like Battlefield sometimes. And I get that the devs intentionally put the smallest maps into the beta to maximize data collection for tweaks, but the maps that we've seen so far just don't scream Battlefield to me. Siege of Cairo, for example, all you gotta do is do some weird kind of wanky, janky stuff with these the parachute mechanics and jumping onto different things, and kind of just like parkouring, and you can get onto the rooftops. And the same with like Empire State. Why not just let these players traverse naturally? Right, so every Battlefield game before this, it felt more like an open sandbox. Each map was kind of like its own open world game, obviously minus the out of bounds limits. But I really hope to see the full release having bigger, more open maps, because right now the beta just feels kind of claustrophobic, and it's the way that we were able to get on top of these roofs and do kind of the things that we're doing right here in this clip is just like, it feels like you're not supposed to be doing it. Like the game wasn't intended for that, but a real traditional Battlefield game should have the ability to be able to do this, because it's not just focused on single lanes, kind of like how Call of Duty is, where you have lanes that you need to hold and hold objectives. It's, you see snipers on mountains, on rocks, jumping out of helicopters to get on top of buildings and stuff like that. And for the map right now that we're currently playing on, this is Empire State, and this map has no vehicles whatsoever as far as I'm concerned. I don't know if that's going to change in the future, but no vehicles have been included in any of the game modes, so Rush, Conquest, Breakthrough, and it just seems like we are losing the ability to be able to get on top of buildings, get crazy spots to hold objectives with and stuff like that, like minus the ability to get to some of these spots by, I guess, using glitches, if you want to call it a glitch. I don't know if some of them kind of feel like they're intended. Like every building has these fire escapes on them that you're able to traverse on Empire State. But it just doesn't feel like we're meant to be doing it, though, because of the way that we have to get up there, if that makes any sense. A couple of the smaller things I've noticed as well is, first off, these destruction and the physics are kind of all over the place. Sometimes a grenade will blow up an entire building. Other times you'll hit something and like the physics go crazy. Like your character will get launched into the sky and across the map because of like a pebble on the ground or something like that. It's funny when it happens, but obviously not intended. Which, I mean, every Battlefield game in the past has had its fair share of glitches, bugs, etc. But on the positive side, though, the scope zeroing's back. I remember playing Battlefield 2042 and pulled out a sniper, and it was just kind of like a guesstimation game. I didn't have the ability to zero my scope on the distance. And now, like, I haven't played Battlefield 2042 that much. I kind of just gave up on it in general. But I don't know if they fixed that in 2042 or not. But here, the sniping feels a little bit more tactical again, minus the egregious scope glint that everybody is always complaining about currently. But I do enjoy sniping, as you can tell here, a lot more than I did previously. Another thing, too, is the RPGs just definitely need some tweaking. Like, right now, they feel like a one-size-fits-all. Like, I'd love to see, like, a distinction between, like, anti-personnel frag rounds and actual anti-armor rounds. The same goes for the engineers. You can carry both anti-air and anti-armor gadgets at the same time, which just doesn't make any sense. Like, no one is realistically running around with 5 Stingers and 5 RPG rockets. Meanwhile, my LMG gunner can't even carry enough ammo. He's got 200 rounds, one 100-round drum in the weapon, and then 100 rounds like in his backpack or whatever the case is. But stuff like that just needs to be balanced. Also, the ability to basically snipe with the RPG is pretty crazy. Feels like it doesn't have any drop whatsoever. It feels just kind of like it's weird own weapon, not really an RPG, just kind of like a make-believe, made-up kind of weapon. Another thing I've got mixed feelings on is Rush. Game mode Rush. It's 12v12 now instead of the old 32 versus 32. And yeah, it's still fun. It's still got the same like Rush mechanics. It's still even got the same sounds from when you plant the bomb, like in from Battlefield 4. But it just feels way smaller in scale. Like, I remember Rush used to be just like the chaotic game mode where you're fighting for an objective, and like you have to be so lucky just to get through into the next point and move on. Like, it's just a slaughter of people and everything. It's a crazy game mode. It's still fun. Still has a little bit of that chaotic gameplay, but it's just not nearly like to the scale it used to be. But another thing too that they did add is kind of a server browser. It seems like probably hinting at a future to a real server browser like we used to have in Battlefield 4. Here in the beta, we've had this thing where it was like custom search, where you could basically choose your game mode, the maps that you want to play on, but it wasn't really like a full server browser where I could pick the actual server. But I really feel like Battlefield needs a server browser. Another thing too that they've added that looks like it's going to be coming out with the full release of the game is campaign mode. right? So Battlefield 2042 released without a campaign mode, but it looks like Battlefield 6 is going to come back with a campaign mode, which is exciting. And I know most people spend 90% of their time on multiplayer, but the Battlefield campaigns always have a nice change of pace. Plus, like in Battlefield 4, to unlock like weapons like the saw, you had to actually complete a campaign mission and stuff like that. I feel like that's like a pretty good like incentive to actually go into the campaign, you know, play the campaign, hit the story up a little bit. And then another thing that I'm kind of like, I don't know if it's better, I don't know if it's worse, but personally, it kind of affects me, I guess, is the squad size. They have a 4-man squad size in Battlefield 6 instead of 5 like Battlefield 4 was. I know that Battlefield 2042 was also a 4-man squad, and I know like if you're running like some real tactics, like you know, like Milsim community does and stuff like that, the 5-man squads just make more sense because a 9-man squad can divide perfectly into 2 fire teams, right? So you have like a Battlefield squad of 5 players with your squad leader, and then that fire team has a fire team leader plus its 3 other assistant personnel, and then you have your other fire team with their fire team leader, and then their 3 other assistants for the fire team as well, whether they're riflemen, machine gunners, engineers, whatever the case is, right? With only 4 players, it feels like they're shrinking the teamwork aspect in that area just a little bit. But I mean, I still understand, like, yeah, it's just a game and everything like that. But, you know, these kind of like intentional like decisions on Battlefield to create like to basically subtract people out of the squad size, just for one, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Because why not have 5 if you can have 5? So I mean, we'll see where that goes, if that changes at all or anything like that. So now let's get into the vehicles and the armor real quick, because on one hand, I like how the damage is kind of modeled. It feels realistic that tanks just take more damage from the top and like rear hits, where the armor was like traditionally like the weakest on armored vehicles, right? That seems pretty cool. And you know, I could also be tripping. I feel definitely like I've experienced that, like, you know, shooting a vehicle from the side with a rocket or another piece of armor, or shooting them from the back. It just feels like I'm doing more damage hitting them from the back realistically. And that's cool. But the one thing that I don't understand is like why we just have random repair stations just scattered around the map. It just feels like a weird like add-on to the game. Like maybe if you have it in like your spawn area and stuff like that, so like your vehicle's taking too much damage, you don't really have engineers around you to help assist with repairing you have to take a trip back to your main and, you know, repair, get some ammo, come back to the battlefield. So it just kind of like reduces the tactical gameplay that you would see normally in a typical Battlefield game. And I just rather see the engineers on the ground just have more of a role in repairing vehicles than just being able to sit at a repair point and just kind of just hold points just with your armor without the need to actually have like teamwork coming into play. And like, yeah, I know we've all seen the people in the Battlefield 6 beta, you know, engineers just riding on top of the vehicles repairing, but you can also kind of just not do that if you just sit at a repair point the entire time. But overall, the Battlefield 6 beta, it's pretty fun. It feels kind of like, I don't want to say a full game, but it feels like, you know, it feels like a pretty well polished beta. Like it's probably one of the most fun Battlefield experiences I've had in a long time. And I've genuinely been enjoying it way more than I expected to. Like honestly, after Battlefield 2042, but it's also a struggle. You know, it feels like Battlefield, yet not quite Battlefield at the same time. You know, I think they've nailed some things like bringing back the voice chat, campaign mode, and, you know, even trying new ideas with the weapon classes and stuff like that. But the other stuff just feels like it needs polishing or rethinking, like map design, squad size, gadget balancing, and, you know, the destruction physics. Um, but you know, the good news, this is just a beta, and you know, if DICE and EA actually listen to the community, keep tweaking it after release, the game has potential to be like a really great Battlefield game. You know, like Battlefield 4, Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5. And the main reason, like honestly, in this kind of comparison, I didn't really contrast or compare, you know, Battlefield 5 or Battlefield 1, is just because like those games modeled after World War One, World War Two, these are kind of like the modern era. Battlefield 4, Battlefield 2042, Battlefield 6 are the modern era of like combat. And I don't really think that they need to have kind of like a comparison done to them. I mean, yeah, those are fun games and all, but I'm thinking of when I'm talking about Battlefield 6, I'm trying to just compare straight with the the modern style battlefields that we're seeing with like Battlefield 4, Battlefield 2042, Battlefield 6, right? Um, that wraps up my thoughts on the Battlefield 6 beta. You know, I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking about. Are you hyped, disappointed, or you're still on the fence, like somewhere in the middle? Drop your opinions in the comments. I'll be checking them out. Thanks a ton for watching, and don't forget, Battlefield 6 officially drops on October 10th, 2025, and I'll see you guys in the Battlefield.